Hey everyone, on this episode I'm going to get back on the cabs. I got the garage pretty much cleaned up. I ordered up some steel to build a temporary frame to put the cabs on so I can get the floors and all that kind of stuff cut out. So let's get to it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all of this flange, all the spot welds ground off, and get this piece off since I don't need it, and just leave just the door jamb part where the striker goes. And then on the back cab I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get all this extra steel from the old firewall, get it all taken off cleanly, and try to salvage as much of this pillar, which is now going to be the B pillar, as I can. That way I don't have to build too much extra stuff. So we'll get all this cleaned up, and then I think what I'll do is I'll put a front and a rear door on, and that way I can kind of get an idea of how much this stuff needs to come together. And then hopefully at that point everything should start lining up. I'll do it on both sides, and then we'll go from there. So I like to use a little belt grinder to drill out the spot welds, or grind out the spot welds. The spot weld drills work good, but they do tend to make a mess of the underlying metal. So in order to try to keep it as intact as possible and not have to fix a lot of it, the belt grinder works really well because it doesn't damage the underside metal. It just removes just the top layer. as you can see, it does take a little time, but see how it doesn't damage the underlying metal? So now you have a nice surface here that if you have to weld anything to it, it's not all Swiss cheese from drilling into it. So it does take a little time, but that's fine. I'm not in a rush. I want it done right, so we'll continue on. So I'm not taking off too much material, I'm just taking off little by little. It just leaves more material to salvage when you go to put everything together. So you start cutting haphazardly, then you got to go back and repair a bunch of stuff that you cut out and you probably didn't need to. So it's nice to take your time, take off as little as possible to make things start fitting together, and then it's less stuff to have to add in the future. So I'm just using a wire wheel to help find the spot welds. Sometimes they're hard to see, so it's just a quick little thing, go over it, and it kind of shows where all the little dimples are, where all the spot welds are. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna rough cut from this body line right here up, just get this piece out of the way since I'm not gonna necessarily need it. And that way I have a symmetrical spot on both sides to reference off of. So I'll just go up maybe about a ½ inch, just cut this piece off, and then later on I can go back and measure up and make sure that both sides are symmetrical. Okay, so I went ahead and got the other side cleaned up, just roughed in for now. Got the flanges all cleaned off. So I think now what I'm going to wind up doing is, as much as I want to keep a lot of the floor intact just to hold this thing square for now, even though it is going to get all cut out, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut, you know, probably up to this body line here, just to get this piece out of the way, because it's a pretty thick piece. This is actually the rear cab mounts for the stock chassis. So I'm going to cut that piece out so I can scoot the cabs closer together. Okay, so I tipped the cab up because I gotta get to the underside. There's a bunch of bracing and top hat pieces that support the floor. So I gotta get, all this is gonna come off eventually. So I'm just gonna unbolt these bolts here, cut what I can cut, and leave as much of the rocker panels as possible for now, even though all this is gonna get replaced. So we'll go ahead and do that on both sides, get this whole piece taken out, and then flip the cab back down, and then hopefully both these cabs will start fitting together pretty nicely. So you can see we're starting to get a little closer here. So now I've got to figure out how much closer all of this needs to go to get the doors to butt up to each other as close as possible. So I can come forward a little bit more if I need to for now. So I think what the next step is I'm gonna go ahead and hang a couple doors on it and just kind of get a look at where we are. Alright, so I've been stewing on these doors because I've got a little bit of an issue. The Suburban rear door hinges are different. They're a little shallower. And because they don't make a 4-door, I can't use a Suburban hinge on both sides. I know there is companies that make kits to convert and stuff like that, but I already have everything. So my thought is to make the rear doors suicide, which then I can put the hinges in the back of the door, move the cabs forward, gives me more room up front, and at the end it looks cooler. So you can see what I'm talking about here. So this is the front edge of the back door. This is the hinge. So you can see how much forward the hinge sticks from the edge of the door. So this is the edge of the back edge of the front door. So there's no way that I can move this hinge in enough to make this door meet this door with, you know, a 1/4 inch gap, because of the latch is right here. So I'm already damn near touching in here, so I can't move it forward that distance. So taking these hinges and putting them in the back, making the door suicide, will fix my problem, because I've got plenty of room back there, and all I have to have room for up here is just a latch, which, again, a little more work, but not undoable. So I think what I'll do is take the skin off of this rear door, so I have just the structure, and then we can kind of start seeing what we're going to do there. So basically what I did with there was the outer skin folds over the inner structure. So there's a seam here. So if you just lightly grind that reveal off, the skin will just come right off without damaging any of this. window channel off because I'm gonna have to reshape all of that anyway, because the front of the door on the rear door is gonna have to be squared off instead of sloped back to follow the windshield. So I just went ahead and got it out of my way since it's just gonna be a hassle for now. So I can start fitting the inner structure with the hinge pockets. And then I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just lop or cut this part of the roof off since I'm not using any of it anyway, just to get it out of my way. And then now that I've got the door sitting where I kind of want it, I can start trimming this back so I can get the, the doors lined up. Okay, so these are where the hinge bolts to. Used to be right there on the front of the cab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean these up, take off all the extra metal that I don't need, because I'm going to try to salvage as much of this as I can to put back here to reverse the hinges for the doors to open suicide. Okay, so now my plan is that these pieces are going to go back in this corner. So they're going to fit back in there. So all of this will get cut out naturally, So then this will pretty much make up the seal surface. And since, you know, the spacing of these 2 points is the same as the door frame, it'll keep everything lined up. So what I'll do is I'll probably take these to my shop. Since I don't have a sandblaster here, I'll clean them up. That way they're ready to mock up. Okay, so I think now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut basically this side off, and because the right front is now going to become the left rear, and the left front is now going to become the right rear. So you crisscross the hinges so that way they open correctly. And I'll take these pieces and sandblast these as well. All right, so I think that's gonna do it for this one. I don't want the videos to be too long, but I'm gonna try to come out with a new video once a week. So thanks everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe, and remember, always weld your vision.